There's a phone sitting in an evidence file somewhere in Mississippi, a phone that never should have been left behind if its owner truly meant to come back. And there's an audio call, played and replayed by millions, that keeps circling back to one impossible question: is someone in trouble? Before we go any further into this update, you need to hear how loud this case has actually become. Not just in headlines, in real voices, demanding real answers, on camera, in public, with nowhere left to hide from the questions.
We want justice in this case. We don't want secret grand jury proceedings. We don't want secret medical examiner reports. We want all threats investigated. We want the truth behind that audio. I want to know. And I want everybody on that boat polygraphed. We want answers.
I didn't come down here, do anything other to get the truth. Did you kill Nolan? Did you have anything to do with Nolan's death? Did you delete anything out of Nolan's phone?
If this were your child, wouldn't you want to know what happened?
Here's what that demand has actually sounded like. Night after night, camera after camera, question after unanswered question. Those aren't rehearsed talking points. That's a public that has stopped waiting patiently and started demanding transparency, out loud, at every single opportunity. Tonight, we're returning to two pieces of evidence sitting at the center of that demand: a phone that was left behind, and a call that keeps raising more questions than it answers. Before any of the theories, before any of the finger-pointing, there was a single phone call. A distress call to a private boating assistance service, reporting a sinking vessel near Horn Island. It's been played publicly more than once, dissected syllable by people convinced something in the background doesn't add up. And once you hear it in full, you'll understand exactly why it hasn't stopped.
Speaking, how can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the water coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles? Hello?
What'd you say? Hey.
Yes, how far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down now.
What did we just hear? What was that? One more time, please.
Detail assistance, Vicky speaking, how can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the water coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles? Hello?
What'd you say? Hey.
Yes, how far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down now.
Here's the call exactly as it happened, and exactly as it's been replayed by people convinced there's more buried in it than a routine mechanical failure. On its surface, that's a boat taking on water and a caller asking for help. But the operator's simple follow-up question, how far is the water coming up, has become, almost by accident, the same question an entire online audience is now asking about this whole case. How deep does this actually go? That question is exactly what brings us to the mystery of Nolan's missing phone. One of the most persistent questions in this entire case has always centered on a single object: Nolan's phone. If Nolan genuinely intended to return to the mainland that night, why wasn't it with him? During an interview with a local officer, one of the older friends present that day offered an explanation, and it's worth hearing exactly how he tells it, because the details matter more than the summary ever could.
Much and was super intoxicated, and that's kind of what a lot of us thought, but they were kind of losing it and they were going crazy, and the mom that was with them demanded Nolan's phone, because Nolan left the phone on the boat, and when we ran in, Nolan didn't ask for his phone, and his keys were not on the boat because his car was parked at my buddy's house where we had all slept, the night before the 4th. And so the keys were left at the house because Nolan's car was at my buddy's house where we stayed at. So of course he left his keys there. But his phone, he was drinking. He didn't have his phone in the water because no one did. And there was more than just Nolan's phone that wasn't on the boat with us.
So it was more than just Nolan's phone that was on the boat?
Yeah, we obviously had all our phones, but on the boat, but those weren't the only people. Like, Nolan wasn't the only person that left a phone on the boat. There was a lot of people that left phones on the boat, that didn't ride out or in with us. So there was a couple phones that we had that we didn't know who they belonged to, and my buddies got that figured out, but it wasn't just Nolan's phone that was on the boat who wasn't there. There was a lot of phones.
So when they barged in, they started getting frantic. The mom asked for Nolan's phone.
Right.
Was there a struggle over it, or did you guys hand it over?
Just handed it over. We didn't think anything of it. She asked for Nolan's phone. We knew they were close friends with, the Wells family, and my buddy went out to his truck and handed the phone over. No complications, no issue, nothing. But I told Miss Christine that we had his phone and he had left it in our possession on the boat.
When did you? Miss Christine is Nolan's mom.
Correct.
When did you talk to her about that?
When I was on, no, I didn't talk to her once. It was 12:30. I might have texted her a couple times and talked briefly about a couple things, but I never. I told her on the phone before I called the Coast Guard that we had Nolan's phone. Before I called Miss Christine, I asked, I was like, oh, well, where's his location at? Because Nolan had his Snapchat location on for me. And he said, it's, Wyatt said it's, in my truck. Because everybody who left stuff on the boat, it was Wyatt's boat, so Wyatt put it in his truck, it's just normal. And so the phone was in possession in Wyatt's truck. And when that mom came over and asked for it, there was no issue at all with us giving the phone to her. Nolan just left it on the boat. We handed the phone to her that night of the 4th of July. What would our concern be getting on Nolan's phone or something? I don't even know Nolan's password. None of my friends do. We had no reason ever to get on Nolan's phone and look at anything. I didn't even touch Nolan's phone. None of us touched Nolan's phone until somebody took it off the boat and put it in Wyatt's truck, and then no one touched it until we handed it back, to the mom that was at my buddy's house.
Listen closely, not just to what he says, but to how carefully he says it. According to that account, Nolan's phone stayed behind because he'd been drinking heavily, his keys stayed behind because his car was parked at a friend's house from the night before, and none of it, according to the friend, was treated as unusual in the moment. When Nolan's mother later asked for the phone, he says it was handed over without hesitation, no argument, no delay. That's the official version of events. Whether it fully answers the question of why a young man planning to stay behind wouldn't grab the one device that could keep him connected to his friends is something viewers are going to have to weigh for themselves, carefully, without rushing to a conclusion either way. If you're the kind of viewer who wants every piece of testimony laid out in full, not cherry-picked, not summarized into a 10-second soundbite, this channel exists specifically for that. Subscribing means you get complete context on every new development in this case, exactly as it happens, without the distortion that comes from clipping a story down to whatever gets the most clicks. Before the next major update in this case broke, one particular reaction to the distress call spread rapidly online. It came from a commentator who described her own background as shaping how she was interpreting what she'd heard, and buried inside her broader reaction were two specific checkable details worth pulling out and examining on their own. Forensic pathologists identified discoloration on the back of Nolan's neck. Officials have been notably cautious about characterizing exactly what it means. One advocate closely following the case, however, has been far less cautious, describing it as a physical marking that he believes is consistent with restraint rather than a symptom of decomposition, and offering a specific, contested interpretation of what could have caused it.
So I don't want to waste no time. I want to get right into it. How you feel about this second autopsy that was done on Nolan Wells?
Yes, I think when we last spoke, we were awaiting the forensic autopsy because the original autopsy performed by the county examiner, we just weren't convinced it would be independent, quite frankly, because we weren't getting enough information from law enforcement. And so the forensic autopsy came back, and lo and behold, even though they're trying to downplay it, and I understand Ben Crump and NAACP and others don't want to try and jump to conclusion or step too far out, but the forensic autopsy showed that there was what they call discoloration. No, I call them bruises in the back of the head, appearing that someone has had their hand pressed at the back of their head, at the back of Nolan's head. That's concerning to me. And so hopefully we'll get some more insight on that. I'm not sure. It seems like there's another opportunity for them to investigate something physiological. I'm just not sure because as far as I knew, the forensic autopsy is as far as you go, but we'll see. But yeah, that's what causes new concern. And then you've had different stories coming out from the teenagers. One of the young men himself spoke out about it, claiming they had begged Nolan to get on the boat, and that he wouldn't. Then there's the woman that he's supposed to have stayed back with, I think her name Katie or something. Well, he was supposed to have stayed back with Katie. That was their story. However, Katie's friend says that Katie she saw him only in passing on the island, didn't stay with him, and Katie isn't saying anything at all. So it's a lot of moving parts here, and I'm just hoping it's not one of those, quite frankly, and if his friends didn't have anything to do with it and they truly left him behind, etc., etc., he has discoloration, bruises on the back of his neck. Something happened. And quite frankly, this is Mississippi, where in 1955, which sparked the civil rights movement, Emmett Till was killed for so-called whistling at a white woman. And now we're hearing Nolan Wells stayed back to be with a white woman, and he turns up dead with bruises behind his neck. That's the context I'm putting this in.
Here's how he described what that discoloration could mean, and why he immediately reached for a historical comparison most people wouldn't expect. To be absolutely clear, the historical comparison he raised to a well-known 1955 Mississippi case that helped spark the civil rights movement is not a claim that the two cases are identical. It's this advocate's personal read on a pattern he says feels familiar to him. A young black man, a companion he'd reportedly stayed behind with, and circumstances that left unanswered questions in their wake. He was careful, even in that same conversation, to frame parts of what he was saying as speculation rather than established fact, and that distinction matters enormously here. Discoloration on tissue recovered after time in open water can result from any number of natural causes, some entirely unrelated to another person's actions. Whether this specific finding points towards something more troubling is a question only continued forensic analysis, not online commentary, can actually answer. That same conversation didn't stop at the autopsy. It moved directly into a pointed breakdown of the friend group's behavior in the days that followed Nolan's disappearance, and why, in this advocate's view, that behavior reads as suspicious even if it doesn't prove guilt.
A lot of people are pointing fingers at their friends. From your professional opinion, what makes them look guilty?
I wouldn't say it makes them look guilty, but it definitely makes them look suspicious. The friends did not act as friends normally do. First of all, if you leave your friend back, you're going to know exactly who they stayed with. And from the very beginning, it's been conflicting information. The young lady allegedly was named Katie, and she says allegedly that Nolan told her that he was going back with the friends he came with. And those friends are saying that he stayed back with Katie. So one of those two cannot be the truth. And what we do know is that Katie did not lawyer up initially. I don't think she still has lawyered up, but we were told that the so-called friends lawyered up initially. They deactivated their social media, maybe scrubbed some of their social media initially. That's very suspicious. Why would you do that if no foul play was expected or had occurred? Because people drown every year. And if you're just a witness to someone drowning, there's no need to be so afraid or
So fidgety.
So fidgety.
Yeah. Now, a lot of things were going on as this unfolded, a lot of suspicious activity. And I'm going to kind of highlight a couple of them for you. The first was, his phone and keys were not on his person. How did you feel about that particular information when you got that?
That in of itself, the phone, if you're out boating and the water was so high, you normally would have your phone on a dry location. So you would have left it in the interior of the boat or something. But the suspicious thing would come when if he allegedly told them he was going to go stay on the island with a young lady, he would have retrieved his phone. You know for certain you don't have it on you.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the first things you're going to do.
I would think I would give you the phone. Hey, yo, here's your phone.
He would have voluntarily, when it retrieved, or his friends would have reminded him of taking it to him before they got on the boat and left the island. They would have seen it. And definitely if they just happened to forget to give it to him, as soon as they got back to land, they would have taken it to his mother or his father.
Here's exactly what he pointed to, detail by detail, as the behavior that doesn't sit right with him. Notice what he's actually built his argument around. Not a single smoking gun, but a stack of small, individually explainable choices that, together, start to look less random the longer you sit with them. Conflicting stories about who Nolan stayed behind with, social media accounts going dark almost simultaneously, legal representation secured unusually fast before most of the public even knew there was a story to follow. None of those things, taken alone, prove anything happened beyond a tragic accident. But taken together, they're exactly the kind of pattern that keeps this case from being closed, and exactly the kind of pattern that deserves a real, thorough investigation rather than either dismissal or assumption. He also returned to the phone one more time, this time from a different angle entirely. If Nolan had genuinely told his friends in advance that he planned to stay behind, wouldn't the ordinary, expected thing be for someone to hand him his phone before the boat left, the same way you'd hand a friend their keys on the way out the door? That's not a question this video can answer. It's a question that remains open, sitting right alongside the discoloration, the deactivated accounts, and the distress call that still doesn't explain everything people believe they hear buried inside it. Every one of these threads, the phone, the call, the marking on his neck, the conflicting accounts, deserves to be followed all the way through, not abandoned the moment a new headline replaces it in the news cycle. That's exactly the kind of patient, complete coverage this channel is committed to delivering, update after update, for as long as this case remains open. If that's what you're looking for, this is the moment to subscribe, because the next development could be the one that finally connects these pieces together. Here's what's actually confirmed as of this update. A second, independent forensic examination reportedly identified discoloration on the back of Nolan's neck, something officials have not publicly characterized in detail. One advocate following the case has interpreted that finding as a mark potentially connected to physical contact during the incident, though he has explicitly framed that interpretation as speculation rather than established fact. The friend group's account of Nolan's final hours, including who he stayed behind with, continues to conflict with statements attributed to the young woman involved, and Nolan's phone and keys remain a documented, unresolved detail that neither the friend group's explanation nor outside critics have fully settled. None of this establishes what actually happened to Nolan Wells. What it does establish is exactly how many pieces of this puzzle still refuse to fit together cleanly, and exactly why so many people, professionals and amateurs alike, keep circling back to the same unanswered questions night after night, unable to let this case rest until someone finally closes the gap between speculation and proof. If additional forensic findings, official statements, or investigative updates become public, they'll bring this case measurably closer to a real answer. Until then, every account we have, the friends, the commentators, the advocates, remains exactly what it is. One perspective on a night nobody has fully explained, and a story that isn't finished yet. If you appreciate documentary coverage that plays every piece of evidence in full and lets you draw your own conclusions instead of doing it for you, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because this case is still very much unresolved and we are not going anywhere until it is.